DC Young Fly didn't hold back when recounting what happened during Rick Ross's appearance on the 85 South show. At first, everything seemed fine. Ross arrived with a friendly energy, laughing trading jokes with DC Carlos Miller and Chico Bean, and settling into the conversation like any other guest. But then without warning, things took an odd turn. Midway through the taping, Ross interrupted the flow of the show, saying he needed to use the restroom and take his jacket off. Everyone assumed he'd be back in a minute, but he never returned. No follow-up, no goodbye, just gone. It wasn't until after filming that Ross claimed his early exit was due to a scheduling conflict, but DC disputes that completely. According to DC, the truth is that Ross bailed because he didn't want to be asked the wrong questions, especially ones that couldn't be edited out. Even more insulting, DC pointed out that Ross's own team didn't know where he went, leaving the hosts confused and hanging. For DC, the walkout felt especially disrespectful because every big guest they've had from TI and Snoop Dogg to Lil Duval has come on for free and stayed the full session. Ross, acting like he was doing them a massive favor by showing up only to leave in the middle, crossed a line. After DC Young Fly's remarks started gaining attention, Rick Ross jumped online to give his side of the story. Speaking directly to the camera, Ross claimed he had nothing but love for DC and the 85 South show, emphasizing that he came on for free out of respect without asking for any analytics stats or payment. He portrayed his early exit as no big deal, saying he simply had other things to do that day and implying that leaving early shouldn't be blown out of proportion. Ross even tried to lighten the situation with humor, joking that he wasted a nice-ass Gucci jacket on the appearance and couldn't wear it again. Then, in a comment that sparked more shade, he said if he ever returned to the show for free again, they'd better have some lemon pepper wings ready for him because last time he didn't get any. He also threw in a few playful but pointed jabs, questioning how well the show was actually doing, and teasing that if he came back, he might just walk off again after a few minutes. While Ross seemed to be playing it off as friendly banter, the undertone was clear he wanted people to know he didn't know the show anything, and that his time there was a gesture, not an obligation. But instead of cooling things down, his response only set the stage for DC to hit back even harder. DC Young Fly wasn't about to let Rick Ross's explanation slide without context. In his follow-up comments, DC called out what he saw as a blatant double standard. He pointed out that Ross left their show abruptly, without finishing the episode, yet had no problem sitting for nearly 2 hours on what DC referred to as a white podcast, answering even the most uncomfortable questions without flinching. DC highlighted one moment in particular during that other interview. Ross was directly asked about his controversial past as a correctional officer, a topic that has been a sore spot for years. According to DC, his crew would never have brought up something like that out of respect for Ross and his career. Yet Ross stayed put, answered the question eloquently, and didn't seem bothered. For DC, the contrast was insulting. If Ross could give that kind of time and patience to a different platform, especially one outside his own community, why couldn't he extend the same courtesy to a black-owned show that genuinely wanted to celebrate him? The message DC wanted to send was clear. It wasn't just about Ross walking out, it was about who he chose to give his respect and full attention to. After trading jabs with Ross over the walkout, DC Young Fly escalated things by dropping a short but highly suggestive clip that quickly went viral. The video, blurred to obscure faces, appeared to show an all-white, foam-filled private party allegedly held at Rick Ross's Promised Land estate. While on the surface, it could pass as a flashy Miami-style pool, gathering the details told a different story. Every guest was dressed in white. Phones were reportedly confiscated. At the door, NDAs had to be signed, and the thick clouds of foam and steam made it nearly impossible to see what was really happening in the background. The timing of DC's post was particularly pointed. Just days earlier, Ross had publicly promoted another pool party for August 10th, even going so far as to say DC himself would be hosting. Dropping the clip right after that announcement felt like a deliberate counterpunch, a way of hinting, I know what goes down at these events, without spelling it out directly. Given the recent wave of allegations against Diddy Ross's longtime industry associate about private freak-off parties, the clip instantly fueled speculation. Fans and bloggers began connecting dots between Ross's parties and the same secretive NDA-heavy environments described in Diddy's scandals. The soap and foam, which might have once seemed like a fun, aesthetic choice, now looked to many like a cover for something much darker. The release of DC Young Fly's blurred soap party clip didn't just spark curiosity, it reignited scrutiny over Rick Ross's past behavior, particularly moments that had already drawn public backlash. One flashpoint was his infamous 2013 lyric, "Put Molly all in her champagne, she ain't even know it." At the time, the line cost him lucrative endorsement deals and forced him to issue a public apology, though many brushed it off as poor judgment or an edgy rap metaphor. Now with Diddy's alleged freak-off parties dominating headlines, that lyric is being re-examined through a much darker lens. Critics argue that what once sounded like an irresponsible punchline may have actually been a breadcrumb, pointing to real-life party culture, where lines were blurred or outright crossed behind closed doors. Even 50 Cent years ago called Ross out for that lyric, and hinted that his upcoming Diddy expose would pull back the curtain on exactly this kind of behavior. In hindsight, the themes hidden parties, mystery bottles, women claiming they couldn't remember entire nights match eerily well with today's leaked stories and lawsuits. The resurfacing of these details didn't just stain Ross's public image again, it added weight to the idea that the foam-filled NDA-bound gatherings might be part of a long-running pattern rather than isolated events. As the soap party chatter spread, an old and once-dismissed story from 2018 began resurfacing, this time taken far more seriously. Back then, a man named Jonathan Audi made headlines after opening fire at Trump National Doral in Miami. During police questioning, Audi went on an erratic, bizarre-sounding rant, accusing both Diddy and Rick Ross of being involved in deeply disturbing activities from sexual coercion to satanic rituals. At the time, his claims were widely mocked as conspiracy nonsense. He alleged that Ross and Diddy were more than just industry allies, that they engaged in Illuminati initiation ceremonies, blood sacrifices at places like Bohemian Grove, animal abuse, and even CIA-style mind control programming. He also claimed to have been forced into sexual acts with Cassie under Diddy's direction, saying he'd had multiple encounters that were orchestrated and controlled. Audi further alleged that the two were part of a drug trafficking network moving high-grade MDMA cocaine and other substances via private jets that avoided customs checks. He said drinks were sometimes spiked, calling it cheap juice, and framed this as part of a larger hip-hop agenda to glorify drug use, binge drinking, and destructive behavior. In 2018, this all sounded too wild to believe. But after Cassie's lawsuit, leaked party videos, and mounting independent testimonies about NDA's confiscated phones and secret gatherings, parts of Audi's rant began to align disturbingly well with recent events, causing many to revisit his words with a far less skeptical eye. With DC Young Fly's blurred clip circulating and Jonathan Audi's old claims resurfacing, the discussion around Rick Ross's events shifted from isolated incidents to what looked like a repeatable formula. Multiple accounts, both from rumors and alleged eyewitnesses, described Ross's gatherings as highly controlled environments where secrecy was the priority. Guests were reportedly required to sign strict NDAs before entry, and all phones were confiscated at the door, eliminating the risk of candid photos or videos leaking. Attendees often wore matching or themed outfits, like the all-white dress code seen in the blurred footage, which paired with the foam or steam-heavy setting, created a dense, obscured atmosphere where almost nothing beyond a few feet was visible. These conditions, when placed against the backdrop of Diddy's alleged freak-off parties, looked eerily similar. Same no-phone policy, same NDA requirements, same mix of celebrity and unrecognizable guests, and same intentional visual obstructions that made it impossible for outsiders to know exactly what was going on. To critics, this wasn't just about throwing an exclusive party, it was about controlling the environment so tightly that any questionable or compromising activity could happen without fear of immediate exposure. The foam, once seen as a playful party element, was now interpreted as a kind of cover, literal and figurative, for whatever might be happening in the shadows. As speculation mounted, fans began digging through old clips of Rick Ross and Diddy, uncovering a lighthearted video that suddenly felt different in the current context. In the footage, the two are side by side, covered in suds, washing cars together while cracking jokes. Ross laughs about how you know that tip's going to be good, and Diddy plays along, turning the exchange into a playful bit that at the time seemed harmless. But with the new allegations swirling and the blurred soap party clip fresh in people's minds, many began reinterpreting the moment. What once looked like two music moguls goofing off now carried an unsettling undertone, as if it might have been an inside joke only those in their private circle truly understood. Fans pointed out the parallels between that old scene and the alleged environment of Ross's modern-day parties: excessive soap or foam, everyone in matching attire, and a seemingly lighthearted activity masking a potentially deeper subtext. In the court of public opinion, the car wash banter morphed from harmless fun into a possible wink at the same slippery behavior critics believe happens behind the NDA-protected walls of those gatherings. What made DC Young Fly's soap party post hit harder than a typical internet rumor was his long-standing connection to the industry, and to Diddy's world specifically. Years ago, DC and the 85 South Show crew visited Combs Enterprises, taking meetings and shaking hands in hopes of getting their show picked up by Revolt TV. During that period, Diddy himself reportedly called DC directly to discuss booking a comedy show, showing that DC wasn't just some outsider throwing shade. He had been in the rooms and around the people he was now hinting about. This proximity gave extra weight to the whispers that Diddy's, and by extension, Ross's, exclusive gatherings weren't just parties, but documented events. For years, insiders have alleged that Diddy records nearly everything: the arrivals, the hallways, the rooms, and even the drop-off points where guests surrender their phones. The purpose, according to these rumors, isn't just to relive the night. It's to own the moment, keeping a kind of insurance policy over attendees who might later speak out. So when DC slipped that blurred foam clip into his feed, it read less like clout chasing and more like a warning shot to anyone who was actually there. Your free pass is gone, and I've got my own receipts. In that light, the foam NDAs and no-phone rules weren't just eccentric party choices. They were part of a larger strategy of control and leverage that industry insiders had been whispering about for years. In the days after DC Young Fly posted the blurred soap party clip, the backlash didn't just come from social media, it came from behind the scenes. DC began receiving emails laced with carefully crafted legal language accusing him of being defamatory and mischaracterizing an event, but noticeably avoiding direct denials of who was there, what happened, or why NDAs and no-phone policies were in place. The goal, it seemed, wasn't to clarify the truth, but to pressure him into quietly deleting the footage before it gained more traction. Meanwhile, platform enforcement kicked in. Accounts that reposted even short snippets of the clip faced demonetization age restrictions or takedowns for harmful activities, even when their captions clearly labeled the footage as alleged. This coordinated push made it clear that there was a real effort to suppress the story before it could spread further. But DC isn't just a small blogger. He has a loyal audience that will follow him anywhere, which gives him the freedom to take these hits without disappearing. And according to whispers from those close to the situation, what the public has seen so far is only a fraction of the footage. Somewhere, there's said to be a longer, unblurred cut of the soap party video. If it ever surfaces, people might not just see foam and white outfits, they might finally see what has been hiding in the bubbles all along.